Hello, everybody. My name is Mariana Salem, aka Mary. I'm here with my co-host, Duriaden Hark, aka Dea. We are two writers who love movies, television, and books, especially when they're gay. And welcome to GayV Club, where we look at LGBT media that we like, that we don't like, and how we relate to them as gay people of colour.
Hello.
Welcome back, everybody.
What's up?
Thank you for tuning in. Remember, if you like GayV Club, please rec us to your friends, your family, your crush, your uni tutorial class. Leave a nice review wherever you listen to podcasts. You can keep up to date with us on our personal socials, but also we have a Twitter and Instagram, which is @GayV_club. We also have a Tumblr, which is GayV Club Podcast. And we have a Patreon at patreon.com/GayVclub, where we have bonus episodes if you're interested in hearing more from us. Our most recent episodes look at high school media and needle drops and music in LGBT media. Also, little self-plug, please support the 2 anthologies that I'm in if you haven't already. This All Come Back Now and Unlimited Futures for some lovely black sci-fi and dystopia and speculative fiction. A lot of it is gay. Both the editors of both anthologies are gay, so it's a good time. What are we doing today, Dale?
Completing our 2022 wrap-up and looking at film. Just part 2 of our 2022 wrap-up, because there was a lot of TV to get through.
There was. Becoming more mainstream is hard, guys. It gives us more work to do than we're used to. But that's good. It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. There's a lot to talk about, and I hope you guys had fun listening to it. So yeah, today we're talking about movies. And
movies.
There's been quite a lot this year. So first film on our list is Am I Okay?, which is directed by Tig Notaro and Stephanie Allen. So it's a coming-of-age lesbian drama about this woman in her 30s who is kind of only just coming to terms with the fact that she's a lesbian and is kind of exploring that part of herself. She's played by Dakota Johnson. Her best friend is played by Sonoya Mizuno. You've probably seen like a still of that movie of them two in bed, and no, they're not gay in this movie, unfortunately. It's still very nice. I would say it's kind of a bit like Booksmart in a way, sort of. Just, I don't know, in the way that the movie is structured, it's similar. So I got to see this film as part of the Sundance program at the start of 2022, where it was purchased by HBO, but where is it? Where is it? It hasn't been released anywhere.
I want to see this
movie.
No,
it's really good. And so yeah, we don't know where this movie is, but we hope that you guys can see it, and I hope that I can watch it again because yeah, where is it? Where is it? Put it on Tubi.
Put everything on Tubi.
Next film you've got Heartshot.
Heartshot is a fun little gay action short directed by a lesbian stunt coordinator, Marielle Woods. I had an aim this year to watch more short films, which I did achieve, and it's just really fun. The premise is that, there are these 2 college girlfriends, they're at home, and then, some unsavory assassin characters, come into the house. One of the girlfriends, she fights them off with all these skills, and the other girl's like, oh my god, how did you do all this? And she's like, there's things I haven't told you, It's one of those, it's so cool. It is so cool. And because it's filmed by a stunt coordinator, the fight choreography is so cool. Like, the way it's filmed is good. I don't have an eye for the filming of fight choreography as much as Dea does, but when I know it's good, I feel like I know it's good, But yeah, Heartshot's really fun. It's still on Netflix. Give it a watch. Great time. I hope Marielle Woods gets a feature for it because I want to know the story. I want to know
what she hasn't told her.
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think about this all the time. It's like Dawn of the Deaf, Like I'm waiting for that.
Yeah, where is the Dawn of the Deaf
well.
feature?
I don't know. One day it'll come.
Yeah, okay. Next up we have Scream 5, which is obviously not directed by Wes Craven. It was directed by the guys who made Ready or Not. That one was kind of polarizing for Scream franchise fans, but I think because it came out like right at the start of the year, and I think the previous film that I'd just seen was Matrix. So watching Matrix 4 and Scream 5 back to back was actually very incredible in the way that they're both metafictions that look at reboots. And so that's probably one of the reasons why I really enjoyed Scream 5 a lot. I actually love Scream 4 but the only way to survive a horror movie these days is to be gay bit always kind of really puzzled me, because as much as queer horror has taken off, it's still very homophobic. But yeah, I do really love that Jasmine Savoy Brown is in this movie and she survives.
I actually was intending to marathon the Screams so that I could talk about this with you, but I didn't get around to it. But I will say that I was very excited to see one of my OG crushes from when I was a kid, Hayden Panettiere, in the trailer for the new one. I was like,
yeah,
Hayden,
she's back for this new one for Scream VI.
I was very excited to see that.
The new one actually looks really good, but it's just really sad that Neve Campbell is not in this. Like, it's baffling to me that they let this happen, and just very unfair. I like the way that they really upped the horror. Not that the Scream movies aren't genuinely scary, but there was something very, like, the deaths in this one were very emotional and a lot more, like, they felt a lot more serious than just like, ah ha ha, it's a slasher, of course you're gonna get slashed. Yeah, it's interesting, like, the approach that they took. But yeah, I sobbed when Redacted died. But yeah, Scream 5 and Matrix 4, they're the perfect double feature in the way that they talk about reboot meta, and I especially love what this movie had to say about elevated, quote unquote elevated horror, and like the A24ification of horror, which is a problem in my opinion. Next up we have Badai Do, which translates to give good news. So it's an Indian film directed by Rajkumar Rao. It's about a lavender marriage plot between a gay Indian man and a gay Indian woman who just decide to get married to get their families off their backs. And it's so corny, but it makes me sob so much because it's just so sweet seeing like the solidarity and the love.
When I started watching this movie, I think you meet the woman first. And I was like, oh, I wonder who the guy is going to be, you know, that she's going to enter this lavender marriage with. And I kept sort of looking at, and then as soon as the guy comes in with his little Freddie Mercury mustache, I was like, ah, that's him. He is. Yep. But no, it's really lovely. And I love how like this movie, the yes end of this movie is crazy. Like it just keeps going. It keeps escalating. Like you would think that this movie, you know, I feel like if there was like a Western movie like this, it wouldn't yes end this much. But it just keeps going. Like, oh, what happens after a year? What happens if people want them to have kids? What happened? Like it answers everything. Everything.
Yeah, it looks at the lavender marriage and like the dynamics of that and the family tensions relating to that, and also like stuff about child adoption, and pretty hilarious trying to hide their real partners from other people. Just the shenanigans are brilliant.
The shenanigans.
It's super corny, but also I haven't cried harder in a movie for a long time at like something that made me so happy. Next up we have my favorite film of the year, Blue Kaftan, The Blue Kaftan.
I'm so jealous that you've seen this.
It's coming out in March here.
Finally.
Yeah. But yeah, it's The Blue Kaftan, directed by Mariam Tozani. She directed the 2019 Moroccan film Adam, which is also one of my favorite films. The Blue Kaftan, it's about a tailor. He and his wife are in their like late 50s, 60s, and he's a tailor who specializes in handmade kaftans. His wife does know that he's gay or bisexual. It's a bit unclear, but that's fine. And he falls in love with his new apprentice at work.
Ooh.
There's a scene in Adam where the two women are kneading dough together.
I love that scene.
It's so, like, I couldn't breathe watching that scene because it's so intimate and so... God, I know. The tension is so thick.
But also it's like poetry.
Yeah, it's like poetry. But yeah, like, I couldn't breathe watching that scene. And this movie, Blue Kaftan, is like that. Maybe obviously not culminating in such a huge scene, but you still feel like little bursts of that throughout the movie. It drives me insane the way that it makes you feel. So, you know, because they're tailors and he's teaching this guy how to sew. So there's lots of, you know, he's like holding his hand and like as they're sewing, and it's so intimate. Wow. It's so intimate. Oh, I have the biggest smile on my face right now talking about this movie. Yeah, so I guess, yeah, this is another kind of lavender marriage movie. But yeah, like he and his wife, like they do really love each other, and the love between them is so, it makes me ache. But she's also dying of cancer. So it's also about how he and his apprentice start to take care of her and how they become like a family.
Wow.
Next up, we've got Joyland, which is, the brown people have been killing it this year. Joyland, directed by Saim Sadiq. It's one of Pakistan's first major LGBT films. Had like a couple nods. Been shortlisted for a lot of things throughout this award season. Never actually gets nominated, which is sad, but whatever. It's still really nice to see that it got to this level. It's also the first Pakistani film that played at Cannes, and it won the jury prize at Cannes, so like that's a huge award anyway. And it's about this guy named Heather, and he starts working at an erotic dance theater, and he becomes the backup dancer in one of the main acts to this woman called Biba, who is trans, and he falls in love with her. Something that's really beautiful about this film, and why it's one of my favorite films of the year, even though the main character is a brown man and he's struggling to live up to his dad's, patriarchal expectations of masculinity and virility, etc. I do love, like, this film, like the way that this film looks at women's experiences is so real.
Wow.
Women's experiences in Pakistan and within this kind of Muslim society especially. There's obviously Biba and her experiences as a trans woman, but also the experience of Heather's wife, and her story is it's so delicate in the way that it handles it.
So Nude Tuesday is a New Zealand Australian joint venture directed by Armagan Ballantine. It's a brutal marriage movie, but it's in gibberish and it's very bisexual. It stars Jackie Van Beek of the Breaker Uppers fame, and also, the original What We Do in the Shadows movie fame. And it also stars Jermaine Clement of the same fame as what I just said. Because the New Zealand community is small. And it's just an incredible movie. It's in my top 10 films of the year. There is this married couple. Their marriage is on the rocks. And so, like many married couples in a brutal marriage story before them, they go on a getaway and join a slightly cultish couples retreat where they're meant to get in touch with their sexuality, sexual side, specifically for couples who are having trouble, having sex with each other. And,
trying to get that spark back.
Yeah, trying to get that spark back. The retreat is run by, well, it's not run by him. It's
it is run by him.
I mean, what does he do though to run it? Like in the thing,
he's the cult leader is
Jermaine, played by Jermaine Clement. And I mentioned this in our sex scenes episode, but for the girlies, for the peoples, for the fans who really enjoyed Jermaine Clement and Jackie Van Beek's horrible sex scene in the Breaker Uppers, there is some quality content in this film for you. But Jermaine Clement is the swagless bisexual cult leader who charms Jackie Van Beek's character with his swagless bisexual charm, I guess. And the reason the film is called Nude Tuesday is because on Tuesdays, everyone is in the nude.
Yeah.
The thing that makes this movie unique is that it is filmed in the way that a foreign language film or a non-English language film
it's very scenes of a marriage
would be made.
Bergman.
It's very scenes of a marriage, Bergman, brutal marriage movie. But the thing that sets it apart is that it's all in gibberish. Like, they're not saying anything.
It's like a pseudo-Scandi kind of...
I did actually attend a panel event with the actors and the director, and they talked about how they did kind of have to memorize gibberish because, for the takes to be consistent, they had to be saying the same things, which was very funny to listen to them talk about, like, having to, decide what the gibberish they were going to say was going to be. The second part, the second layer, if you will, of what makes this movie very special to me and to the world is that they wanted to make a movie that anyone could subtitle. So they did have a plot line, and there are events that happen in the movie, but the subtitles are not standardized. And what the idea was, they would take the film, they would make it, and then they would send it off to comedians to subtitle. At the moment, I believe there are 3 different versions of the film. One is just the gibberish, non-subtitled, so you can just watch it raw. Is that the word?
Yeah.
And then there is a version that is written by Julie Davis, and there's another one by Ronnie Chang. And none of them, the people that subtitled, like got to communicate with each other. So they are slightly different.
Or communicate with the filmmaker and like look at the original script or anything like that.
Yeah, so it is purely their interpretation. And Jackie Van Beek came up with the idea of this film along with the director because they thought it would be fun to have a film that people could like learn how to subtitle with, and like people could have fun in film schools and like subtitle it themselves and teach themselves comedy, basically, which I think is like a really fun idea. It's just fantastic. One of my favorite films of the year, purely because of just how fun the concept is and how hilarious it is to watch this. I feel like this movie would be perfectly paired with The Lobster, you know? I came out of this movie thinking...
That's very true.
thinking about The Lobster. And I don't know, I can't prove anything, but I'm like, I feel like it was one of their reference films. Because there's
definitely.
There's like moments in it that feel so similar. But it's like The Lobster is very dark. The Lobster is dealing with this in a very dark way. And funny, but like very dark, whereas Nude Tuesday is very silly, goofy. But very clever in how it's silly, goofy.
Yeah, it's excellent. Next up, we've got Flux Gourmet. Okay, so speaking of The Lobster, Flux Gourmet is directed by Peter Strickland, who I love. He's a freak, and he's like if Yorgos Lanthimos wasn't so fucking sad. I really love his films. I love Duke of Burgundy. Yeah, Duke of Burgundy is a really great gay film that he's made, and also In Fabric. But yeah, Flux Gourmet is about a food ASMR band, and it documents their experiences as a band during a residency at a very prestigious food ASMR culinary institution. It's very weird, very absurdist, and very culty as well. It's I've seen it likened to This Is Spinal Tap, which is like a mockumentary about a fake band. It follows the interviewer that's documenting their process. And yeah, every character in this is gay or bi, but it's not really about that. It's about the creative collaboration and the tensions that come from that.
Nice.
Yeah, Duke of Burgundy is like brilliant, but it's very dark. So this is like pretty lighthearted, but also, yeah, it's crazy. They're insane. Next up, there's the documentary Loving Highsmith, which is directed by Ava Vitia. I love the premise of this in that they look at Patricia Highsmith's life by interviewing her ex-lovers.
That's cool.
Yeah, they track down like 3 or 4 of them and interview them about her life. I don't really have much to say about the film itself. It's a very hagiographic picture of Patricia Highsmith. It's got some interesting stuff on like the development of Carol or The Price of Salt, but only in the last 5 minutes of this documentary does it mention Patricia Highsmith's anti-blackness and anti-Semitism, and then it moves on in a way that gives you like serious whiplash that makes you go, wait, what?
Oh god.
So yeah, as I said, it's very hagiographic. But yeah, I do love like as a concept, if you want to find out about someone's life, like interview their exes, especially like a lesbian's life. I think it's worth a watch, but also, yeah, just be a bit critical. Don't take away just this image of Patricia Highsmith in your head. Next up, Bodies, 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 directed by Helena Rain.
Yay!
Which, yeah, I think was great representation for the podcast girlies. Just for that one scene where Rachel Sennett is like, it's really hard. Yes, it is.
It is hard. Yeah, we agree. I just love seeing Rachel Sennett because Shiva Baby
she's brilliant.
is one of my favorite films, and she's just brilliant. Like, she's so good.
Yeah, it's a pretty fun just slasher about a group of vapid mid-20-year-old somethings who all actually kind of hate each other. And I think like the characters were very real in that like I definitely know people like this or just like slightly exaggerated versions of this. But another thing is like I don't really know about the longevity of this movie because so much of it is so specific to like this period of time and to like this specific age group that I don't know how it'll fare.
I think it'll be a cult classic for our age group. That's what it will be, you know, and I think that's like a very fun thing for it to be, you know?
Yeah, I do want to say though, like a drawback for this movie for me was that it was Apple iPhone propaganda because I refuse to believe that her phone battery lasted all night long.
No, definitely. Not with the torch on. Are you crazy?
No way. With the torch on the whole
crazy?
time? No. I feel like that should have been more of a problem. Really? Like... Next up, we've got Sissy, which is an Australian film directed by Hannah Barlow and Kane Sennies. It's like Australian Bodies, Bodies, Bodies in a way.
Oh.
in that a bunch of young zillennials out at an isolated rich person's house, getting picked off one by one. So it stars Aisha D
Of Saddle Club fame.
of Saddle Club fame. And she is an influencer who runs into her best friend from primary school, and her best friend's getting married, and she just gets invited along to the engagement party and then the bachelorette party that takes place in isolation in the bush. And her friend is gay and getting gay married, but that's not really important for this story.
Wow.
Yeah, so this movie is representation for the people who were like pretty normal in high school / primary school, except for the one time that they snapped. And that's the only thing people remember about them, in the way that Aisha D is like so cut off from all their friends who only remember this one thing that she did when she was in primary school. But yeah, this is just a really fun slasher. The kind of similar sorts of characters to Bodies, but yeah, it's in Australia, it's in the bush. It's really fun and colourful and pretty.
I have a question. Do they acknowledge, like, is there like weird racism in it? Like, or something?
I think it's heavily implied, honestly.
Okay. You can tell with an Australian.
Definitely like the way that they portray in the flashbacks back in primary school, very much so. So it's a really fun kind of daylight horror sort of thing. It's set in the bush. It's very colorful and really funny, and it's got one of the best endings of a horror film that I've seen in a while. It's like the antithesis to the Bodies ending in like a very fun way.
Next up, we have Phoenix Rising, which came out, I think, earlier on in the year. I think it came out March, but I didn't watch it until very recently, and I think that's important for me to mention because this came out in February, March. I watched it towards the end of the year after I'd witnessed the heinousness that was the Amber Heard trial, and the reason I mention that will become clear in a minute, but like, this Phoenix Rising is a documentary about Evan Rachel Wood's anti-domestic violence advocacy post her relationship with Marilyn Manson. And in the documentary, she does talk about her bisexuality and how the fact that she was open about her bisexuality was used against her, like, by the media and by fans of Manson when she spoke out, even though she didn't name Manson, like, people kind of knew. And so she breaks that down, like, she talks about that a lot throughout the documentary, and she also talks about how, like, Manson himself, like, used that against her. It's a really tough watch. It's not something that you should watch if you have any like vulnerabilities to issues of domestic violence and abuse. But I was not aware that Evan Rachel Wood was doing so much like domestic violence advocacy, and it really focuses on like how she's collaborated with all these different advocacy groups for domestic violence, and she's actually managed to get like legislation changed in like several states that changes the statute of limitations, because in a lot of American states the statute of limitations on domestic violence is only 2 years, which is not enough. You know, when you consider how long it takes a lot of people to get out of these relationships and be able to come to terms with what's happened to them. I was quite emotional watching it, especially in light of what we'd seen throughout the year with other figures like Meg Thee Stallion and Amber Heard, who came forward with intimate partner violence and what we saw like happen to them in the media. This documentary that Evan has made is very much part of all that.
It shows like that pattern.
Yes, it shows that pattern. It shows that like these aren't isolated incidents, that like there is a system that allows men to perpetuate this, and a huge part of that system is that domestic violence is so hard to charge, to convict, because in part of like how limited amount of time you have to report it before it can't be considered. But yeah, it's a very tough watch, but it's actually really incredible to watch. Not only her, but there is a scene where she speaks to other survivors of Manson's abuse, and it is really powerful to see someone lay out the patterns, that this is not an isolated incident. And obviously, I can't emphasize this enough, if you have any kind of experience or like vulnerability with this, like really it goes into a lot of detail, and I wouldn't recommend it. But yeah, it's just a really great thing, and I'm a huge fan of Evan Rachel Wood, and I've noticed that she sort of hasn't been in a lot of stuff other than Westworld. And, you know, this documentary was good for me in the sense that I was like, oh, this is what she's been doing. This is very cool. But of course, like, we wouldn't hear about it because, of course, you wouldn't. But yeah, really great doco. Evan Rachel Wood, I love you. That's all I have to say.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you say this like you don't fucking hate Dolores.
How could I hate Dolores? She's the guy, you know? She makes everything happen. What
do you mean?
Like, you know, she causes all the trouble. I do hate Dolores.
You never said that. You never said that.
I never said that. I never said that I hated Dolores. No, okay. Like, I do hate Dolores, but I love Evan Rachel Wood. You know, it's a dichotomy. Yeah. Anyway. And I'm sad now because what am I going to see Evan Rachel Wood in? You know? Like, what am I going to see her in? Guess you gotta
watch True Blood.
No.
Okay.
But on a side note, you know, just everyone should watch the Weird Al movie.
Where she plays Madonna.
Oof. Everyone
I feel like
should
that
watch
should be like an honorary gay film of the year.
I think it is. Like, I think they played them as Bye for Bye, which is like, you know, that was iconic of them to do. You know, Daniel Radcliffe being the short king that he is. Even with the hair, like, she was still taller than him. That's amazing.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. We have They/Them, which is a Blumhouse horror film directed by John Logan, who is gay, allegedly. It's very difficult to believe given the film. Yeah, so this movie was absolutely made for the gag title, They/Them, a slasher set in a conversion therapy camp. And
That's so
it was
fun.
it was most absolutely made for the gag title, which is a bit evil in the way that like gender neutral pronouns have become like a gimmick to so many people, like a joke, which I don't like. I don't like that, like, first of all, that this perpetuates that. But also the movie itself. So the only thing I can actually credit this movie with is that, you know, when the trailer came out, we thought this would all be about a bunch of gay kids in a conversion therapy camp getting hate crimed by a slasher killer, but it's actually not. They're still being hate crimed though, you know, because they're in a conversion therapy camp.
Of course.
I don't know. Obviously, like, it's stupid to have expected anything from this movie, I know. But the thing is, like, you could have made a horror movie that looked at the way that like Christian or other religious groups have adapted their conversion therapy methods to seem less like child abuse in these modern times. But instead, it's just like this film is just this incredibly insensitive mess. And also, I'm going to spoil the ending because don't watch this movie. But I think it's really fucked up that the killer was like a previous victim of the camp and she was framed as bad for wanting to take revenge through violence.
Wait,
get the fuck out of here.
Are they them? They didn't even make the slasher, are they?
Terrible. I mean, the main character is non-binary. That's why. I think it's called that. One other trans character. In the movie, a horror slasher is the last time you would see this kind of shit being moralized so liberally. Like, oh, if you you know, exact violence, you're just as bad as them. No, you're not.
No. You really aren't.
These people are child abusers. Like, getting their heads chopped off is like the least that should have happened to them. But yeah, that was, complete waste of 2 hours. But hardly anyone watched it anyway, so it's just gonna be buried in the history of sludge. That is Blumhouse. Speaking of Blumhouse, though, I am really mad that they cancelled Karen Kusama's Mina Harker Dracula movie. I'm so mad, Mary. You remember what I said in our Jennifer's Body thing where I thought that she might be making a Mina Harker movie with this Dracula adaptation, and then it turns out she was, but then it got canned.
We live in truly inhospitable times for happiness.
Yeah, you know, this is my Joker origin story. It's terrible. It's terrible. Speaking of terrible, next film is Bros. Written by Billy Eichner, starring Billy Eichner. This movie was supposed to be a very big deal in that it was like the first major studio film, you know, a rom-com about gay men, written by a gay man, starring gay men.
It's kind of basic.
It's very basic, but also like I feel like in a year that Fire Island came out as well, like it just feels a bit silly to like even say it.
I don't think this film, like, even though he kind of marketed it that way, I actually don't think this film was for the gays.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it more like when I thought about it, but at the time watching it, I said to Daya at the time, I said to you, I was like, I don't know. It's kind of weird because I feel like we have these conversations all the time, and I'm kind of bored
Yeah.
watching it because I'm like, I know this. I say this to my friends. Like, I
Uh-huh.
don't. It just feels
It
strange
feels very
to.
basic.
Mm,
Because yeah, I guess because it isn't like the first major studio production like this, that it just feels so basic. I would say I did like this movie, but the merits that I see in it take way too long to explain, so I'm just not gonna bother.
yeah.
Um Let it fall through the cracks.
I respect that he stayed in his lane. You know, he could have easily, like, you know, written something that, you know, where he tried to speak for everyone and it ended up being a really huge mess. And I just still think it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen when he, like, took the steroids, like one shot of steroids, and he has roid rage from one shot. And he can't even like do anything with it. Like he's trying to be all ragey and like hulking out, but he can't lift anything or move anything.
I think like
Uh,
the historical roller coaster that's narrated by Bowen Yang, that's like, you have made it through. And now for the Obama administration. It's so good. Sorry, this just sounds
I
so random out of context, but there are like a bunch of really good jokes throughout this
There are
whole
some
movie
great jokes
that
in
are
this.
excellent.
I appreciate it because like I've met people like him and it felt like I was watching like a real person. I was gonna write in my letterbox review like something silly. I was gonna be like, oh, so when Billy Eichner is a loser with a podcast who's like chronically single, like he can make a movie out of it, but when I do it, it's just like my life or something, you know, like. But but no, I liked how like sort of real he felt, like in that same vein of like he just talks like he's a
Yeah.
person working through these things rather than like a person who already has like all the answers and they're like
Mm.
didactically teaching the audience, you know. There is an element of that, but it's like done in a way where it feels like, oh, he's working through this too, you
No,
know,
it's done
which
in a
is
way where
nice.
it's like he seems like really tired of it.
Yeah.
Like when we watch Bros and we think, God, this is so basic. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit for this. But like you definitely have this impression that this character is so tired
Mm.
of explaining these really basic things. Which yeah, if you want to view the film in that way, it's a lot more enjoyable, I'd say. But yeah, speaking of the podcasting thing, worst podcast representation of the year, in my opinion.
Yes.
He doesn't really have a podcast. Like, he just has a podcast at the beginning of the movie to, like, you know, give us some exposition about his life, and then
Mm.
he just stops. You know, this is a rom-com. Just do the voiceover. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine. I love a rom-com voiceover.
Next up, oh, I Want to Dance with Somebody, the Whitney Houston biopic directed by Kasi Lemons, starring Naomi Aki as Whitney Houston. I just want to say that first and foremost, from the writers of Bohemian Rhapsody, is not the selling point that you think it is.
Ew, is that what
Um,
they Oh,
yeah, it's on all the
no.
posters. So yeah, we've talked about LGBT biopics before on this podcast famously, and it pretty much has the same problem as all music biopics that have come out recently, in that it's a very much just a speed run through this person's very long career that doesn't really take time to breathe or do anything. It's just relentlessly moving forward until it stagnates during the during the drug abuse phase of the person's life. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty hard to have a bad time listening to Whitney Houston music, but we still need to ban biopics. I did really enjoy, like, I really love everyone involved in this movie. Kasi Lemons is there, Naomi Aki is great, Ashton Sanders as well. One thing that I was pleasantly surprised about with this film is that it doesn't erase Whitney Houston's romantic relationship with Robin Crawford. But as I said, this movie is very much a speed run, so it just moves on way too quickly for any of it to hold any bearing. But yeah, it's hard to have a bad time listening to Whitney Houston music, but you know, I still think biopics need to be banned. Also,
And you're right. And
fuck
you're
you,
right.
Baz Luhrmann.
This is an anti-Baz Luhrmann podcast, okay?
Yeah.
Forever and always.
Forever and always.
Crush came out this year. It is a coming-of-age rom-com about two high school girls who fall in love, you know? Like, that's it. It's a rom-com. It stars Awali Cravalho and Warren Blanchard, both of whom are openly gay actors. It's deleted now, but Oailey, because she used to have TikTok, and someone commented, like, why are you doing a movie with Rowan Blanchard who's, like, biphobic? And she did a TikTok with that comment over her face and was just like, money's money or whatever. She deleted it, unfortunately, but it was very iconic. That was what convinced me to watch the film, actually. My favourite part of that movie was Michelle Buteau, actually, who played the principal.
Oh, okay.
She was my favourite part. She was really funny.
All right.
I have nothing else to say. Moving on. My Policeman. We talked about this heaps in our sex scenes episode. So go and listen to that. I don't think we have anything to say that we didn't say there.
Yeah, it's a movie about two guys going at it. Or not, according to Harry Styles.
This is the movie that made me watch But I Do, because I was messaging Dea and I was like, this movie would be so powerful if this movie could be so powerful, because so much of this movie is just the three of them, the trio of, like, Harry, his boyfriend, and his wife going out being friends together, but then, you know, Harry and the boyfriend, you know, secretly going at it, as he said.
They're not going at it.
They're not going at it.
As he said.
I said this would be such a powerful movie, and Dale, like, just messaged me back, like, watch But I Do, and I did, and that was the better Lavender Marriage movie. And the thing that I really hated most about this movie, even though it was mostly just fine, but I think the thing that's most egregious about it is that it paints the woman as the most victimized of the three because she was married to a gay man. And I'm not saying that that wouldn't have had its own unique difficulties. However, like, you know, a man marrying you because he wants to avoid literal prison, I think I can tell which is the greatest struggle there.
Watch the Blue Kaftan. Watch the Blue Kaftan. Watch Badhai though. Yeah,
literally weakest Lavender Marriage film of the year. My Policeman. Yeah. Moving on. Oh, Anything's Possible. This was Billy Porter's directorial debut. It's a coming-of-age rom-com about a black trans teen girl. It is a little instructive in places. Like, you can tell they're taking this opportunity to teach people, like, what you should and shouldn't say if you're dating a trans person. But it's still very lovely and it's still very funny, and I really loved all the characters, and as far as a directorial debut goes, it's pretty good. No notes.
I think to see it. I really want to.
I think Billy Porter, like, using his platform and to use his directorial debut to tell a story like this is really great, because it's not the kind of thing I grew up seeing a lot of, so I'm, like, really happy. Like, I know we bag on Crush and other things, but I am really happy that, like, kids growing up now have these films and can see themselves in them. Like, Anything's Possible is just another one of those films where the whole time I was like, wow, I can't imagine, like, what it would have been like to have access to a film like this growing up.
Yeah.
Oh, another bestie. Oh my gosh, I love this movie so much. It's actually one of my favorite films of the year. My Fake Boyfriend. It's a gay rom-com directed by lesbian icon Rose Trochet about Kenan Lonsdale falling in love with a beautiful Lebanese chef who is played by Samir Salem, who has my last name. Isn't that exciting?
Oh, are you related?
We might be. No joke. No joke. I mean, I know that Salem is, like, the most common name in Lebanon and Palestine, so we're probably not, but, like, you know.
Okay.
The premise is, like, so perfect, silly, goofy, convoluted rom-com premise. The premise is that Kenan Lonsdale just broke up with his long-term booty call, who was a piece of shit white guy. Oh, also, Kenan Lonsdale in this film is a stuntman. That's his job.
Oh, love it.
That's why when I saw the trailer for Polite Society, I was like, oh, cool, another stunt person comedy movie. This is great. But anyway, Kenan Lonsdale is a stuntman. His long-term booty call is the actor who he's being a stunt person for, and he's really not very nice to Kenan Lonsdale, but Kenan Lonsdale is very hung up on him. So his best friends, who are both bisexual, played by Sarah Hyland, and I think it's Cole Sprouse in this movie. Is it Cole or Dylan?
I don't know. Does it matter?
No, it does, because this is the one I had a crush on as a kid, so it does matter.
Okay.
It's not the one that's in Riverdale.
So it's Dylan?
Dylan, yes, it's Dylan.
Okay.
So
I thought everyone had a crush on Cole. back in the day.
Not me, baby.
Oh, okay.
Dylan Sprouse and Sarah Hyland play Lonsdale's bi besties, and Dylan Sprouse is a web developer, and he decides that in order to keep Keenan's weird white men from hooking up with him, he creates a whole AI fake boyfriend for Keenan and like posts about him on social media. And like the joke of this is that the boyfriend becomes like a full-on influencer, like with 2 billion followers. And Keenan is supposedly like in this relationship with this person that doesn't exist.
Okay.
And Dylan Sprouse ends up like having to like AI himself into being this fake man, so that he can make money out of it. It's so funny. It's honestly insane. Like this movie, at one point they have to kill.
There's murder in this.
There's murder, but it's not really murder because, like, the boyfriend isn't alive. It's just an AI. But, like, Dylan Sprouse is, like, so attached to him.
Oh, we can talk about this in our spec fic.
I was, like, laughing so hard, like, in this movie. This movie is genuinely so funny. There's so many sequences of Keenan like hooking up with these like random guys who then find out his boyfriend is this very famous influencer, and he has to like try not to tell them that he's fake, like it's not real. But then of course the whole thing is that he meets Samir's character and like genuinely falls in love with him, but Samir also follows the fake boyfriend on Instagram and knows that quote unquote that Keenan like isn't single, and so it's like the only solution the only solution is that Dylan Sprouse has to kill him, and the funeral that they have.
Okay.
This movie is so funny. This is why I said it's like my favorite.
Don't give the whole thing away.
I won't give the whole thing away, but oh my goodness, this is so funny. Unfortunately, like, even though everything I just said to you sounds like the perfect silly, goofy rom-com, unfortunately I had to dock it half a star because Samir's character is Lebanese, and there's a scene where he's talking about batlerware, but he doesn't say batlerware, he says the more common name that's used for it, which is baklava, and I can't believe they had a Lebanese person call it baklava. No Lebanese person calls it that because we have huge beef with the Greeks, and so we don't call it that. We call it batlerware. Why did he not say anything? Maybe because he's a relatively new actor, I don't know, but I was just very deeply upset by that. 5 stars except for that, but yeah. The thing I will say as well is that it was really nice to see a rom-com with 2 people of colour, like, as the leads, like 2 men of colour. You very rarely see that with straight rom-coms, let alone queer rom-coms.
Yeah. Next up we've got Do Revenge, directed by Jennifer Caton Robinson, which is like if Thoroughbreds was made on TikTok.
It's true.
So yeah, this movie is about Camila Mendes, and she goes to some like uber prestigious high school, and she's a top student, but her life gets ruined when her boyfriend leaks her nudes, and she befriends a little lesbian named Maya Hawke to get revenge on him. They do the revenge. Yeah, this is honestly a pretty fun movie. I thought the little bits in it were great.
I had an amazing time.
I have issues with the whole thing of like all the rich to privileged bullies being ethnically diverse. Like I thought that was like, come on.
Colorblind casting, worsty.
Just let white people be white. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Something I really didn't like was like the lesbophobic use of the word lesbian in this movie. Yeah, Maya Hawke's character is gay and they talk about it very openly and stuff, but the 2 times that they actually say the word lesbian implies it as like a really like evil and predatory word, which I just hate. I just hate the way that people are so scared of the word lesbian now these days that like that it's even like considered unfashionable at some point. Like, come on.
Really find the whole complex around the word lesbian. Like, I understand why it exists to a certain extent, but it's just like, it's bizarre to me. Like, because like in that movie, Maya Hawke is a lesbian. Like, she is a lesbian, but she doesn't call herself that, and the only time she does is, like you said, in this really horrible way, even though, yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah. TikTok Thoroughbreds, everyone. Next up, we have Bones and All, directed by Luca Guadagnino, who I don't like. But I did really love this movie, actually.
I love this movie.
It's a road trip movie about two cannibals, and one of them, Taylor Russell, is the main character. She's kind of coming to terms with her cannibalism, I guess, and finding her community. And yeah, she goes on a road trip looking for her mom to kind of get some answers about why she's like this, basically. And, you know, she picks up Timmy Chalamet on the way, or he picks her up on the way, I don't know.
They find each other, man.
This movie is just very clearly one big My Own Private Idaho homage, which is probably one of the reasons why I really loved it.
I wrote a piece this year that I'm really proud of about like the way that we use cannibalism in media is like shifting to like use it to talk about like community dynamics. And I wrote about how this film, like very clearly, like and cleverly, and it's based on a book as well, it very clearly uses like cannibalism as a metaphor or an allegory for being gay or being disabled or being
an addict,
or you know, there's a great many things you could put in place of the cannibalism in this movie and it would still make sense. I think that's really cool. You know, if you can come out of this movie like feeling sad for these characters because they eat people and they can't help it, you know, maybe you can find it in your heart to like have more empathy for people around you. I saw this with my dad and we both had an excellent time. And even my dad, like, this is what I mean when I say people who say this movie like romanticizes cannibalism really bugs me, because my own dad got that it was like a metaphor.
No one is saying...
No, people are saying that.
Well, I mean, yeah, people are saying that, but those are people that like don't know how to pass a metaphor. Like,
yeah, I know.
Like this movie is made for adults that can.
I will forever remember this movie as the movie that made me understand why people like Timothée Chalamet.
Oh, okay.
That was like very difficult for me because I have never been a fan of Little Timmy. I have struggled with him because I don't believe that he should be a leading man. This was a belief that I've held for a long time. But this film, I was like, there were several moments where I caught myself being like, oh, I get it. And I appreciated him in this movie and I liked his outfits. I was like, you know, my dad leaned over to me at one point, was like, you'd wear something like that. I was like, yeah, I would. So, you know, I'd appreciate that. And, you know, oh, yeah, it's on the list because, well, Luca Guadagnino is gay, but also, like, because little Timmy is bisexual. He's a bisexual cannibal, and he has a tattoo on his arm that says Adam and Eve and Steve or something. Because, you know, that's what you do when you're a bisexual cannibal. You wear it on your freaking arm, man.
For me, it's not that I dislike Little Timmy himself, but I just have so many issues with his filmography and the movies that he's in. Like, a lot of them, they just make me so angry that, like, I'm not gonna watch this shit, like Dune and stuff. Like, it just really bugs me. Like, every movie that he's been in really bugs me. So I'm just not used to looking at Little Timmy. Sorry, Little Timmy is what my uni professor refers to him as, and I can't stop, sorry. But yeah, so like one thing watching this film, because, you know, I'm just not used to looking at Timmy Chalamet, so like I would be so immersed in this movie and then it would cut to a wide shot of him and it would be so jarring. I'm like, why is this boy so long? You know, like
oh, you and my dad both. My dad kept leaning over to me being like, he's so skinny.
No, not skinny, he's long.
He's long.
I don't know. Like, and especially like with the way that his jeans were cut as well. I was like, Dad, this is so weird. This is so weird. But yeah, it's a great movie. I was very surprised that I enjoyed it, but I'm glad that I did.
When he had the fedora on, I could not stop laughing. I was like, this movie is so funny. I really love the scene when they're in the back of the truck and he's like, who was your first time? And she's like, my babysitter. And he's like, oh my God, me too.
No, I think it's the other way around or something.
Is it? Oh, it doesn't matter. Same thing.
Yeah, I'm reading the book and they've swapped it. So in the movie, like, it's her dad, Andre Holland, who she grows up with, who's caring for her this whole time. But in the book, it is her mom. I think My Own Private Idaho of it all is just very strong when you watch this movie because it's about searching for your mother. Yeah, this is a beautiful movie. Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, I love you. Mark Rylance is so gross. He's
Nightmare
so gross
fuel.
in this.
Nightmare
Oh,
fuel.
when he like dribbles the slop. Disgusting. Disgusting. Ugh. No, don't like
Ugh.
this. Don't like that. Moving on from that, we have After Sun. It's directed by Charlotte Wells, who is gay. The movie itself is only like a teeny tiny bit gay, but it's an excellent film anyway, and I cried so much. Yeah, it's about this woman, this adult woman. She's a lesbian, but that doesn't matter. And she's looking back at her time, at the last time that she spent with her father, which was on when she was like 9 years old, on holiday in Turkey. And her father's played by Paul Mescal, who got an Oscar nomination for it. Congrats. Trying to understand as an adult like what she saw as a child watching him and like his behavior in this last time that she saw him on this holiday, and it really got me. The way that this film uses music especially is so strong. Tender by Blur, Losing My Religion, and also Under Pressure by Queen. And I will never be able to listen to Under Pressure the same way. I'm gonna be thinking about it forever. So yeah, it's an excellent film. After Sun. You will cry. You should cry.
Anyway, next up we have Wendell and Wild. It's directed by Henry Selick and co-written by Henry Selick and Jordan Peele. Henry Selick, of course, like is the director of Coraline, and he also directed Nightmare Before Christmas, and you know all those movies.
Yeah.
all the
All
dark
those movies that people think are Tim Burton movies.
yeah,
Yeah.
which they kind of are, some of them, but yeah,
They're not
you
just
know,
his.
they're not just
Put some
his, you know.
respect on Henry Selick's name.
Have some respect. Read the credits, for Christ's sake.
Mm-hmm.
But Wendell and Wild is Henry Selick's latest creation, and it is, of course, very wonderful. It follows a young woman called Kat who has been sort of cursed her whole life. Her parents die in a car accident, and then she makes a wish for like two demons to come and help her bring her parents back from the dead. And these demons are, of course, the titular Wendell and Wild, voiced by Key and Peele.
Yeah.
I literally just, in my head, that's like just Key and Peele.
Yeah.
And it is such a fun little movie. This is one of the movies I added to my private list on Letterboxd, which is movies that look like the inside of my brain, because it's very batshit in how it plays out, but it's also deeply anti-capitalist, like from the beginning. And also, like, there's a whole monologue in this movie where they condemn the prison industrial complex. So we love to see it. And the reason it's on this list is because there's a character called Raoul, who is Kat's bestie in the film, and he's trans. Kat is sent to like a girls' school, but Raoul is there. And he's the only boy at this school, which is kind of a hint. But then there's this scene where he shows Kat a picture of him when he used to be friends with the popular girls, and he was presenting as a girl.
Pre-transition?
Yeah, pre-transition. It's a really nice scene because Kat just says, like, I can't believe you had, like, a poodle hairstyle as well. It's really, like, subtle, but it's there. Like, it's very much, like, it's not subtext. It's literally part of the story. There's a great piece in Time magazine about how animations are, like, revolutionizing trans rep and discussing how Raoul from Wendell and Wild and Barney from the tragically cancelled Netflix horror animated series Dead End Paranormal Park, which is just really cute. It's about a trans teenage boy who's gay, and he gets a job at a haunted theme park. The article is by Laura Zanosa, and it features like all these interviews with queer animators who worked on both of those projects, and also like the actors who are also LGBT. Like both the actors who play like Raoul and Barney are also trans. And they just talk about how like the medium of animation like gives them a lot of freedom to like express trans stories in ways that sort of are limited with real life stuff. You know, there's a really nice bit where they talk about how it really just gives them the freedom, like, to feel seen and have cool stories with trans characters in them that don't center on, like, you know, on them coming out or on horrible things. I personally think if I ranked Henry Selick in my head, this would probably be my favorite, which is saying something because I love Coraline, like, so much. really fun. And I love the character design for everyone in it.
Yeah,
It's
no, it's
just
really cool.
so cool, so cool. Yeah, so if you haven't watched it already, I was pleasantly surprised by the trans rep in it. I was not expecting that, and it was just a lovely, just another thing, again, why I added it to the list of movies that look like the inside of my brain. Like, and the soundtrack is so cool because Kat, like, loves punk rock music. So there's all these, like, punk rock songs, and they're all by black bands. And stuff. It's very cool. It's just such a cool movie. Like, that's literally the only word I can use for it. It's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I can't believe we never thought that, like, a Jordan Peele and Henry Selick collaboration, but, like, it's like a match made in heaven, really,
Yeah.
when you think about what they do in their respective fields. Oh, and next up we have my favorite. I think this is like my third favorite film of the year in my little ranking. We have Sirens, which is a documentary about the Lebanese heavy metal band Slave to Sirens, who are all women. It's kind of weird to compare it to this because they are real people, but if you like We Are Lady Parts and the gay storyline in that, this is the real version of that.
Yeah.
Like, this is the real life version of this. Like, I think when we saw it, Day, like, you said to me, like, I couldn't help thinking of the parallels, even though that's a real person.
Yeah.
And it was just really cool for me to see lots of Lebanese women doing very cool things that I can, like, connect to on the screen large. Like, a huge disconnect I have is that, like, I don't always think that I, like, look Lebanese, and then, like, when I see things like this, I go, oh, they have the same nose as me. Oh, I have eyebrows like that. Like, it's just very nice. It makes me feel very seen.
We need to go to Western Sydney more often.
We do.
Yeah, I should take you.
But it's just because, like, I've just grown up with such a, like, a disconnect from other Lebanese people that aren't my family, so I just have this thing. And I don't always realize I have it until I'm watching something about Lebanese people, and I go, oh, my people, which I know is very lame, but that's just how it is. But yeah, this movie, Sirens, apparently it was bought by HBO Max, but as we said before, where is it?
Where is it? I'm just realizing now, like, so many of the stories that I've enjoyed recently they're all about, like, creative collaboration and about, like, those sorts of friendships and how that changes some friendship dynamics, like Mythic Quest and the Bear and Flux Gourmet and everything. So Sirens is really interesting, like how, like, all the different intersections of their identity factor in to how the dynamic in the band works and things like that. Yeah, Slave to Sirens, they're brilliant music as well. So you should, if you're not able, like, we don't know where you can watch this right now.
We would
given
not
everything,
know
but
such
go check out their
things.
music anyway, because it's amazing.
I just want to say, like, some of the visuals in this documentary were
yeah, absolutely
outstanding. I saw this other documentary. We saw this as part of Sydney Film Festival, and I saw another documentary while I was there called Beirut in the Eye of the Storm, which was about, like, the fallout of the Beirut government that happened sort of during the pandemic and also due to the big explosion that happened in the Bay. This was somehow, like, by telling these women's story that just happened to be happening against all of that, was a better story, like a better, more, like, structured way of explaining what happened than the documentary I saw that was specifically trying to be about that. And, like, it, you know, which is a shame because, like, the other film was directed by Maya Masri, who she's a really great documentary filmmaker. She does a lot of work in Palestine and stuff as well. But yeah, it was just some of the shots of them, you know, like, talking about the dates they're going to go on, and there's, like, a protest happening behind them, and they're just, like, you know, on the side of the street, you know, showing pictures of, like, the girl they're going to go out with. There's, like, scenes where they're swimming in the water, like, against, like, the bay where the explosion happened. Like, it's just some really stunning, like, almost archival work also happening of, like, documenting this period of time in Beirut as well, which I thought was really, really beautiful. Oh, next up.
Next up, we have My Worstie, Tar, directed by Todd Field, starring Cate Blanchett. So if this movie existed in a vacuum, it would be perfect. It would be, like, the most perfect movie ever made, with the exception of the last 15 extremely racist minutes. But because this movie exists to win Cate Blanchett her third or fourth Oscar. It's so insidious. Um so yeah, Tar is the story about a musician. She's named Lydia Tarr, who is
Who
like
is not real,
extremely
by the way.
successful, who's not real. She like works as a conductor. She's an EGOT winner. She's a lesbian. She I don't know. She's got so many achievements or whatever. She's basically like at the top of the game, the very top of the game. And it's about how her life starts to unravel when allegations that she's a sexual predator responsible for the suicide of one of her students starts to arise. It's a very like tortured artist style movie about ego, but also it is still very much a Me Too movie, which is why I think the fact that it is a Hollywood film just doesn't work for me, or just like for what it's trying to say, in my opinion. Like I don't think, like I feel like it just isn't I just feel like a story like this could never be effective. But yeah, so this is a story that like you never really learn the truth about what Lydia actually did, but it's just showing like how her life falls apart because of it. It's not really the thesis, but I'd say the question of the movie is, can you separate art from the artist? And I feel like Todd Field hates people under the age of 25. So I feel
Can
like
you talk about the bit at the dialogue at
right in the middle of the movie, there's a scene. It's all shot in one take. There's so many scenes shot in one take. There's so many scenes that's just like endless monologue to show us how brilliant Kate Blanchett is. And but yeah, this scene in the center of the movie, she's teaching like a special class at Juilliard that's meant to be like a no phone zone, like no one's meant to have their phones on. And Lydia asks a BIPOC pangender person, a self-identified BIPOC like someone calls themselves like like she's speaking with she's speaking with one of our students who identifies as a BIPOC pangender. Like they say BIPOC like phonetically.
They say BIPOC like the word
like
BIPOC?
phonetically. Like they say BIPOC like BIPOC. Like they don't say BIPOC. They don't say I hate.
Or they don't just say their specific ethnicity?
They don't say their specific ethnicity or anything. They just say BIPOC. Like, first of all, like Todd Field, a white man writing this, like, no. Secondly, like, if you are a person of color and you use... I hate so much hearing people like pronounce POC as POC or BIPOC, or like using POC as an adjective. That's like why I do my best to just say people of color every single time, so that people don't do that, because otherwise it just becomes an adjective for colored, which is not great, obviously. So yeah, like not to just get hung up on this particular self-identification of this student, but
it's truly baffling that like a line like that is in a script that's nominated for like best screenplay.
Is it nominated for best screenplay? Fuck off.
Yes, it is.
Okay. It really speaks to like just like this wider issue of just like a very willful, like the fact that you want to write this story, but also like you have no understanding of like how this generation actually like approaches these issues, is so of like separating the art from the artist, and like how we feel about these things is so crass.
Can I just ask, like, what does he actually say to her?
So yeah, basically this BIPOC pangender student says that they just don't fuck with Bach because they can't really, they're not able to separate the art from the artist. And Lydia she's very like slick about it and very well spoken about it in a way that argues against it, in a way that like completely trumps this person's opinions. Flaw of this movie is that it just like really doesn't understand how these things would work, like within our generation, because this film is very much made for people, I don't know, who are like for like millennials and boomers who believe that cancel culture actually exists.
Very ironic. Well, not even ironic, actually. I think it's very in character of Kate Blanchett to be in a film like this.
Yeah.
Considering like, her support of Woody Allen and the fact that she named her child after Roman Polanski.
Yeah.
Like, I am actually very angry that she's like winning awards for this and people are patting her on the back for like playing this martyr.
Like, I don't think this movie wants you to sympathize with Lydia, which is, I freaking hope not. I don't, like, obviously the whole, like, she's mother thing, I don't understand that. But, like, everyone that watches the movie knows that you're not really meant to root for her. But at the same time, like, I don't know the value that films like this that give nuance to people like this has. I hated every second of Tar. It's like a technical masterpiece, but I just couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it. Also, the last 15 minutes of this movie where she does get cancelled pretty successfully. And the last 15 minutes she gets sent to, I think it's either Thailand or the Philippines.
Why does she get sent there?
Well, she doesn't get sent there. Like, the only job that she can get as a conductor is conducting an orchestra for, like, a fan experience of a TV show of, like, I don't understand what it is. It's really awful. And there's some stuff where she goes to, like, a massage parlor and there's, like, sex workers there. And it's like, oh, no, look how, like, far she's sunken, where she's sent to this place that does this thing. No, fuck that. Fuck that. But yeah, actually, like, something interesting, I think, about Tar is its similarities to The Killing of Sister George, which I did mention in our sex scenes episode. So Killing of Sister George is, like, famously, like, one of the first lesbian films with an explicit sex scene in it. But the actual story itself is quite modern in that it is kind of like one of the first cancelled lesbian stories, because it's about this woman. She plays a character called Sister George, who's like a nun in a British soap opera. And after she sexually assaults some nuns in real life, it's about, like, how her career crumples. But not on a public stage, obviously. Like, this is a very, like, quiet behind the scenes thing, because this is the 60s. And yeah, so I thought it was really interesting, like, because I think I watched Tar and then I watched Killing of Sister George in preparation for writing our episode, and I realized, like, how modern, how, like, if you were to adapt Killing of Sister George for, like, the present day, it would look exactly like Tar. It would basically be Tar. So that's an interesting thing to think about. And I think, like, yeah, I encourage people to, like, visit Killing of Sister George and see what you think about it. But yeah, I hate this movie. I hate misunderstanding that this movie has for the generation and for technology. It's so corny and, like, kind of embarrassing, actually. So goofy. Like, yes, I do understand, like, for the most part, this film is very well written in the way that it presents Lydia. And, obviously, like, it's not at all trying to be sympathetic towards her, but there's something, like, really condescending about it somehow. Like, even though it's not sympathetic to her, there's something really condescending about the way it portrays the people who are trying to take her down, which I don't like. Next up, we've got Babylon, directed by Damien Chazelle, which is about the rise and fall of characters who represent various Hollywood archetypes during the transition from silent films to talkies and further into the 30s. I actually really loved this movie. Like, I know I just talked so much shit about Tar, and I feel like Tar and Babylon kind of, they want the same sort of audience, but I actually really loved Babylon. I'm very surprised at myself for it. So I think the most common phrase that people have been used to describe this movie is that it's like a hate letter to cinema. And I just want to say, like, this movie, it is not a hate letter to cinema. It's not a hate letter to safety regulations or, like, film criticisms. I think it's a hate letter to the Hays Code and the wave of, like, general American Puritanism and the way that it held cinema and also society back during that period of time when it was really implemented into Hollywood. That being said, I do think that the film could have done better to convey this. Yeah, the most interesting characters in this film are played by Lee Jun Lee and Hovana Depo. So Lee Jun Lee, she plays like a fake version of Marlene Dietrich. Hovana Depo, he plays a character that's based on the jazz band leader Curtis Mosby. Even the main character, played by Diego Calva, he's kind of based on, like, the many Latino filmmakers that were working in early Hollywood who, like, pioneered, like, the Spanish language content during that time period. They're, like, the three most interesting characters. Unfortunately, the movie wastes a lot of time on Brad Pitt and Margot Robbie's characters because the film spans, like, many, many years. As the time goes on, you kind of see the way that the Hays Code and the changing political climate have affected people's careers. And that's definitely, I think, the most heartbreaking and like most the part of the movie that really stays with me. The reason it's on this list is because, yeah, the fake Marlene Dietrich character is a lesbian. And there's this incredible scene
Woo!
with a snake that I don't really want to spoil what happens with it. Apparently, Mary told me that the snake audio thingy is like a viral thingy on TikTok right now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just the bit where Margot is like, "Who wants to say
I'm gonna
I hate
fight a
this
snake. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
something
Yeah,
like
I don't
that.
want to
Like
say
she just yells it.
I don't want to say what happens in this scene because I think it's very good to like just
Yeah,
be
and
surprised
I want to
by
go
it.
see Babylon, so yeah.
But yeah, it ends up being the scene culminates in something very gay happening. It ends up with like a relationship between Margot Robbie's character and Lee Jun Lee's character that's actually like long term until like the pressures on the industry and the public eye, like because of that they're forced to break up, and Lee Jun Lee basically loses the work that she does. One of the opening scenes of this movie is Lee Jun Lee. She's kind of recreating that Marlene Dietrich scene in Morocco where she kisses a woman in front of the whole club, and it's incredible. It's incredible. And then yeah, with the fake Curtis Mosby's character, it takes a look at how like the racism and how catering to audiences in the South led to like, you know, increased racism against Black people on film. Black people in cinema, like the opportunities for them were actually starting to kind of blossom a bit during that period in time until this movement was implemented. And so like, yeah, with the fake Curtis Mosby character, it looks at the way that the pendulum starts to swing back in the other direction to the point where he just gets forced out of the industry basically because he doesn't want to put up with the indignity. So yeah, just in general, I do think this film obviously could have been better if it had focused more on these characters, but I'm still very impressed by it. And like, I do really appreciate the film for like what I've mentioned, given like the work that we do on like the things that we discuss on this podcast. Like this is so specific actually to our interests. But yeah, the movie itself, from a technical standpoint, I think is perfect. One of the things that really annoyed me about La La Land is how lazy it gets. Like, obviously, like, it starts and it's all, like, sweeping and the movement and, like, the pacing is incredible, but then it really stagnates around the middle of the movie and just gets really boring right up until, like, the final big number. But, yeah, something I really love about Babylon is even though it's a 3-hour movie, he's awake the entire time. He doesn't drop it for a single second. Like, obviously, like, there's different changes of pace within the story. I think it's just so consistently turned on. Yeah, I'm just really impressed that a movie like this could have been made. And it's sad that it flopped, and obviously I'm not crazy about Brad Pitt being involved in this movie. I can think of like 10 different dudes that you could have cast instead that would have been like actually better for the role. But yeah, overall I did really enjoy this movie.
You've made me want to see it because I wasn't really going to bother with it before you rang me and told me what it was like.
No, the thing is, I wasn't really going to bother with it because I saw all the bad reviews. But the thing is, like, when someone says that a movie is unwatchable, that just makes me really curious. Like, I just want to see, like, how badly can it go? Come on. I've got a free afternoon. Let's waste 3 hours.
Oh, I just didn't want to see it because the trailer, like, just confused me. I had no idea what it was about. Like, it just showed sort of a lot of, like, partying and stuff, and I was like,
yeah,
I don't know what this is, but it was giving me, like, Baz Luhrmann energy, and
oh,
I just
yeah.
didn't want that.
No, yeah, you
So-
do really get that energy from it, but it's not as nauseating as Baz Luhrmann is. And like, you know, it actually has a purpose other than to nauseate you. So yeah, moving on, you've got
Fire Island! My best friend, Fire Island! Yes, Fire Island is directed by Andrew Ahn, and it is an adaptation, a modern adaptation of Pride and Prejudice.
It's an adaptation of Pride and Prejudice that's set on Fire Island, which is like a popular gay tourism spot in New York, and all the characters are gay men on vacation there. It's really interesting to see that how like the themes of class difference that are explored in Pride and Prejudice can be applied to this other very specific, very different setting.
Yes, because I think the whole idea with Pride and Prejudice is how insular it is, and so like I think the clever thing about Fire Island is that it's also like showing how these class dynamics are at play in like a very insular community, which I think is a big part of the reason why I think it works. I know that not everybody thinks it works as an adaptation.
I think it works as an adaptation, but sometimes as a film on its own, it comes off as a bit weird for people that aren't too familiar with Pride and Prejudice.
I didn't really realize this until like a few friends of mine who are not Pride and Prejudice fans or like just they're not familiar with Pride and Prejudice as a story. Like they sort of watched it and went, like they were like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Like they were sort of like, it was funny, but like, they didn't really vibe with it.
And that's
So
a fair criticism though to have, because I
Yeah.
think like when you've got something that's so different from its source material, it should be able to stand on its own. But I guess not. Like it's just not for everyone. But yeah, we did really love this movie.
One of my favorite things about this movie is that it's shot on film and it looks absolutely stunning. The use of natural light in this movie just makes my heart so full. There's so many scenes that are filmed in at like the golden hour, at like sunset, sunrise, and everything looks just so beautiful. The cast is just excellent.
The lead and who also wrote the movie is Joel Booster as
Yes.
Lizzie. You've got Bowen Yang playing like a hybrid of Jane and Charlotte, and Darcy is played by Conrad Ricamora.
Yes.
And yeah, I love him. It was so nice
I
to
love
see him in
him.
something like outside of How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah, it really was. And also Conrad is so good. Mr. Darcy is so good. I rewound like when I first watched like the scene where he throws his little ice cream away so many times. I was like, this is such a perfect scene. As an adaptation, it just does everything so well. And it's just such a fun movie. Like, I don't know how you can watch this and not have fun. We were talking about Bros earlier, and I think this movie does touch on and like explore a lot of the same themes that Bros explores, but from a more like intersectional perspective. I don't really feel I can speak to how well it does that, but like I can definitely see the attempt. And we do have an episode coming soon where we talk about Fire Island and Pride and Prejudice.
Let's do it for Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like we have an episode coming where we talk about like sort of queer adaptations of Pride and Prejudice, like talking about Fire Island and a few others. So we'll elaborate on that more there. This movie, most notably, we'll leave you on, is that it got an honorary Bechdel test pass from Alison Bechdel themselves.
Yeah.
So, what more do you need to know?
Yeah. Next up,
we have Nope, directed and written by and produced by Jordan Peele. It's technically not a gay film, though. You know that post that's like the LGBT community has forgiven Jean Jacket. I personally think that Jean Jacket, they're a non-binary icon.
Yeah.
Like I
also
I
Kiki Palmer's character is a lesbian,
and also of course Kiki Palmer.
And also, if the GLAAD Media Awards can nominate Lightyear for one of the best LGBT films of the year, I think we can talk about Nope on our podcast. Okay.
Yeah. As a long-time Kiki Palmer stan, like this movie is like what dreams are made of for me. Like I was just delighted seeing Kiki on the screen large in like a big sci-fi horror, like excellent film with excellent execution. The technical aspect of this, flawless. I am actually appalled and shocked that it was not nominated for anything. Like not even
cinematography.
Yeah,
and
or even
design.
Special effects.
Oof.
Or sound design.
Beautiful,
like it's just
beautiful work.
Just a travesty, really. I could talk about this film forever because I think it's just an incredible story with so many layers. Like, Jordan Peele has not done a miss yet.
No.
And he never will. I don't like people that are saying, like, this is his weakest one. I don't agree with you.
I think it's my favorite, honestly.
Yeah?
I think the thing is, like, a lot of people kind of, like, walked into it thinking that it was just going to be, like, a fun monster movie, which it is.
I think it's a fun monster movie.
It's a fun monster movie. It's a fun daylight horror movie, but also it's just about so many other things. Like, there's so much commentary on, like, the gays and Hollywood and just cinema in general. There's so much, like, that's, like, so integral to that.
Yeah.
That's like very cleverly, I think, woven into the story. And I think, yeah, just like the thing is like people weren't really expecting to watch something that required you to think. So like to someone that has their brain shut off to these things, like they're just going to see like a bunch of things that seem kind of meaningless to the story, but are actually like really integral to it.
I also think it's very weird that people expected that given what Us and Get Out were also about.
Yeah.
I think that if you weren't looking at the deeper meaning in those films and you resent Nope for having a less direct hold your hand approach to similar themes, then you just need to get better at watching movies. I don't know what to tell you. I think it's very interesting that a lot of people on Twitter and TikTok want to talk about the gays all the time, but when they actually are confronted with a film that is addressing the issue of who gets to look in cinema, like who actually gets to do the looking, who gets to be perceived, when a film is actually about that, it's you can't spot it. It's almost like people on TikTok and Twitter who talk about the gays all the time aren't actually talking about that because they don't know what these terms mean. But yeah, I think this is just another masterpiece for Jordan Peele. He just keeps getting better and better.
Yeah.
Like, this is so corny to say, but Jordan Peele is one of those filmmakers that when I sit and watch his films, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I get to be alive at this time to watch his films. Like, I genuinely think that every single time. Like, I go like, wow, I'm so lucky that I get to live and see this. I'm so lucky I got to grow up with him doing Obama impressions and making me laugh, and then now I get to like have him change my whole view on cinema in like 2 and a bit hours.
Yeah.
He's one of my like dream interview people. I would love to talk to him. But
That would be
yeah,
that would be so great. I think
Yeah.
the one thing that I have against Nope actually
Mhm.
is the title.
Yes, I think
I think
underdid it.
No, like they did it for the meme. Like I remember when they first announced the movie, it was like years ago, I feel like.
Oh yeah.
I feel like it was like 3
right
years ago.
right after Us had come out.
And the poster, and you had no idea what it is. You just knew that the title was Nope. And I think they should have just like changed the title before release, because every time they do say Nope in the movie, like it just feels really corny and I don't like it. I think it just kills the vibe actually. So it's just that's my only thing against the movie. Other than that, it's flawless in my opinion.
Also, shout out to Emerald and OJ, one of the best like brother sister representation I've seen in so long. Adored them so much.
There's been a lot more like brother sister media recently, which I really appreciate, because I don't think intergender siblings intergender I don't know.
Mixed gender siblings.
Mixed gender sibling combos are just very undermined material in my opinion. And it's just really nice, like given like the way that I've grown up, just to see it.
Yes.
So it's like on one hand like we've got Malignant, and on the other hand we have Nope, and
double feature. Double feature. Oh my god, James Wan in conversation with Jordan Peele. 10 out of 10 would watch.
Please.
If either of them listen to us, can you do that, please? Can you talk to each other? Why is
James Wan merging with Blumhouse when he should be merging with like Monkey Paw? Come on.
Yes.
Like it's not that hard. It's not that hard. Sorry. I don't know how business works.
Why can't they just print more money? I don't understand. Anyway, or last but certainly not least, in no way least,
probably the most.
Probably the most. You could almost say everything, because it is Everything Everywhere All at Once, directed by the Daniels.
Daniel Kwan and Dan Scheinert.
What can we say? Like, the world actually agrees that this is the best film of the year.
I know. The Oscar nom, it's crazy. It's crazy. I remember like mid last year, I had a conversation with you, Mary, where I was so mean. I was like, don't like, it's so freaking delusional to think that Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's so freaking delusional.
You were very
to
pessimistic.
Think that this, I was very pessimistic because, like films like this like don't get the
I know.
Sort of
I understand why
like,
you were.
Ever. And so I'm so shocked. I'm pleasantly surprised, a little bit embarrassed, but I'm just very happy overall.
It's a good thing to be wrong about.
It's a good thing to be wrong about. It's a good thing to be wrong about. And so this is a brilliant film that's just, can we give a summary quickly?
It's about a woman trying to do her taxes.
It's about a woman trying to do her taxes. Elaborate a bit more, please.
It is about a woman, Evelyn, played by Michelle Yeoh, who is genuinely attempting to do her taxes. And in the course of trying to do her taxes, she gets recruited into a multi-universal battle against an evil force. And she has to learn the ability to verse jump, and she gets to see all her alternate lives. I started crying when that bit happened because this is like a story, the kind of story that I'm deeply obsessed with. So that was like very
You
moving
love a
to me.
multiverse story.
I do. I have a published multiverse story, guys.
Everyone go purchase Unlimited Futures.
Yeah. Thanks. Just in the middle of it. By the way, guys.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's what the story is, like a multiverse story about a woman called Evelyn, and she is told that because of how much life she's lived and because of all the things that she has and hasn't done, she is
that
like the
she's
most
failed
equipped.
to do.
Yeah, that she's failed to do. She is the most equipped to fight this evil force known as Jobu Tapaki. And I don't know, I don't really want to, if you haven't seen it, I don't really want to elaborate on it but beyond that, because should I
I'm gonna it's not really, because like you kind of find out in the first 20 minutes anyway, but Jobu Tapaki is an alternate universe version of her daughter, her gay daughter, who she is homophobic towards.
Yes.
And between Everything Everywhere All at Once and Turning Red, there's like this new fantasy genre that's really hip right now that's called Asian Mothers Apologizing. And it's crazy. The way that this film actually like deals with that, like of like having Asian parents who are homophobic, and like the way that that kind of trauma makes you feel, and the way that, you know, you kind of want to end the entire universe. It's very real, very relatable in my opinion. And it's really beautiful the way that this movie is like, actually, the best way to stop the cycle of abuse is to fucking apologize. And
so true.
A
revolutionary idea.
What a revolutionary concept, which is why it's a fantasy concept. And I was really, we were just crying in the cinema, Mary. We were just,
we were.
Oh, it's much. This movie is relentless. Like every time one of my friends like would message me like, "Hey, I'm going out to see Everything Everywhere All at Once," I was like, "Have a coffee beforehand."
Yeah.
Because you need to be awake for this. It's brilliant. And like I just wanna like this movie was edited on Premiere Pro. Paul Rogers, the editor, you are an absolute maniac.
Yes.
They've released photos of the like screenshots of the premiere of the timeline of this movie in Premiere Pro, and it stresses me out so much.
It stresses me out. Look at all those tracks.
All those different tracks, all those different pieces to get. But it's nominated for Best Editing, and I totally understand. And I fully agree.
Something that I loved about this film, apart from the fact that this film is kind of like everything I love, like all my favorite story ideas and tropes in a film, apart from that, which is a lot of it. The other thing I loved about it on a technical level is that the Daniels like just clearly love movies.
Mm-hmm.
They pay all the homages in this movie, even homages that to films that I hadn't yet seen, but then Daya would be like, "Oh, they're playing like this bit was a homage to this," and it was just so nice, like spotting the ones I did spot. And then Daya sent me like a little bit of the movie commentary where they talk about like how they had blood spatter on the lens, and that was like a reference to Children of Men, which is really funny because Daya and I were both like, we saw, like, because we are like Children of Men 2000 and 2008 fans.
Something I really, really love, especially about this film, is how accessible so much behind the scenes material for this movie is, and like the movie magic of it all. And I love how the Daniels, like they're not like keeping all their cards close to their chest. They're just like here. And so like watching it with commentary is really funny. It's like listening to directors like CinemaSins their own movie. And you learn a lot. Like if you're really interested in film production and editing and like all, like pretty much all facets of filmmaking, all the different departments of filmmaking. Like, definitely watch this with commentary. It's so fun and so interesting.
Some of the bits and pieces I've seen in the commentary kind of give me the same feeling that I got. Like, I remember wondering when I was watching Sense8 how they did all the, like, changes from one of the Sense8s to another. And I remember thinking, like, wow, they must use some, like, really complicated CGI. And then I remember watching the documentary on, like, making Sense8.
Yeah.
And Lana was just like, yeah, we just swapped them out.
Yeah,
you
they
know,
were just, like, ducking in and out of the camera, like, like, when
And
you
it's
see, like, just, like, a wide shot of them doing, like, what... of them doing it all, it looks so goofy, but it's really fun. And yeah, this movie is like very much that.
It's kind of like the simplest answer is often the correct one.
Yeah, I just love the way that like this movie was pulled together. Like, it's pretty low budget. It's like surprisingly low budget for like such a massive movie. Yeah, I love like so many of the people that worked on VFX were like self-taught, and like they got like the Martial Club off YouTube to do the fight choreography, and it was brilliant and just really fun.
I just love the way they cast this movie as well. Like they really had this vision of like, here's who we want.
For Michelle Yeoh, like this is like such a perfect movie to demonstrate how talented she is, to showcase every single thing that she could do, and it's it's really beautiful.
I also just love listening to Ki Hai Kwan talk about like how he hadn't been like given any jobs in ages, and so he was just like so touched when they reached out to him and were like, hey, we love you, do you want to do this? Who doesn't love Waymond? Like, if you come out of this movie and you don't love Waymond, I don't know what's wrong with you.
Yeah. Stephanie Hsu as well.
Oh, Stephanie Hsu
as Jobu/Joy.
She did like a live panel on TikTok, and I was like crying watching it because she has mostly done like theater stuff. Like she started like breaking into movies, but like not really anything major. And when she got the script for this, she like really wanted to do it, and like she was like, oh my gosh, you know, like I can't believe this. And she showed the script to her wife, and her wife was like, you have to do this. This is like the coolest thing ever. Like even if it doesn't become big, like you're going to regret like not doing something that sounds this fun. And she just talked about how
freaking bullet when Awkwafina dropped out of this movie.
Thank the Lord. But yeah, I just love watching like Stephanie Hsu talk about like how, again, like a lot like Ki Hai Kwan and the others, like how this is like a major career shifter for her, and it really is something she never expected she'd ever get the chance to do for someone like her. And it's so nice. Like everything I hear about this film is like so kind. And like full of love, and I think that's just so nice. We were talking after the Golden Globes that like Colin Farrell winning for Banshees of Inisherin and Ki Hai Kwan winning for Everything Everywhere All at Once is so nice, because like they play really like nice characters, and it's just nice to see men winning for roles like that rather than winning for playing predators.
Predators and Nazis and cops and people who yell and yeah.
So I don't know what we can say about this film that hasn't already been said. It's just wonderful, and I don't think we'll see anything like it for a very long time. Like it's just so
I'm interested
special.
to see like the influence that it has just on like future cinema, you know. Like there are definitely people who are going to be like majorly inspired by this, and obviously like, you know, this movie itself is, you know, really big on Matrix and things like that. Yeah, of course we love it.
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful film. I'm excited that it's gotten as much recognition in the awards circuit that it has. I feel like people who are saying that Everything Everywhere All at Once being nominated for all these Oscars is the signal of the death of cinema, and I think it's the death of a certain kind of cinema, and it shows the way that we want to see something new, that the way that we want to see this art form like really transform and appreciate actual innovation. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm very excited.
I am very excited too, but I also want to say to people saying like, oh, it's great that the Daniels finally made something good, as if Swiss Army Man wasn't good.
Who is saying, meet me in the pit? Meet me.
Nobody asked you, and also Swiss Army Man is a great film. I don't care what anybody says.
It's so good.
Like people who are like, oh, I didn't know the Daniels had this in them. Shut up.
No, they are extremely talented people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Swiss Army Man is if, like, you got, like, extremely talented people to make something, like, deeply stupid, but also it's really not stupid.
Like, that movie makes me cry. Like, it's just about love. Everything they make is just about love.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And people who think they're unlovable, like, realizing that they're loved. You know, that's their whole thing.
Yeah.
We need stories like that. Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe it's a bummer to mention this, but my one thing is I really love the success of Everything Everywhere All at Once, and I really love that, like, so many people, for once, like, so many people my age are really interested in a movie that's, like, this unique and stuff, but it's also, like, I feel like we only really pay attention to movies on this level when they cater to your inner child, which is what this movie very much does. And there have been, like, some pretty valid criticisms on the way that this movie, like, erases, like, things like sexuality, like Evelyn's specifically, in a way that's, like, a bit infantilizing, but I think it's still a great movie to have.
I still think it's putting out a lot more good.
Yeah, it's putting out a lot
than
more
it's-
good.
You know, like, on balance, you know, nothing's ever, you know, fully perfect. Nothing can be
Yeah.
everything for everybody, but I still think it's made, like, incredible strides. Not to just credit any of that,
Yeah.
because I have seen a lot of criticism of, like, that a lot of people feel that that Evelyn's abuse of Joy is, like, very much, like, skated over in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Personally, I don't think it's skated over. I just think, like, because Evelyn is the main character, really all that she can do is, like, the thing is, like, the truth is with issues like this is all you can really do is apologize. Like, understand what you did and apologize, which is something that Evelyn does. The thing about this movie is that Joy actually forgives her, which is something that, like, none of us are obligated to do. But it's, you know, it's a fucking movie. So of course she's going to eventually forgive her. But also, like, something really important, I think, about this movie that, like, that really drives it home is, like, Joy's first instinct is to run away, which is just, like, so deeply relatable. Yeah. This movie is everything.
It's everything, it's everywhere, and it's all at once.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those were the last on our LGBT movie list.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to give an honorable gay film mention.
I really don't get this one.
Because you haven't seen it, you don't understand.
Fine.
Okay. So I want to give a shout out to the movie, the film A, if you will. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which I saw after I got kicked out of jury duty for funsies. No, not that I got kicked out of jury duty for funsies. I saw the film for funsies. I think this movie, I know you hate this word, Dea, and I know a lot of people do, but genuinely this movie, like, is a bromance in a non-homophobic way, and it's, like,
a
so
friendship
nice.
Between men. Like, just say that. Just say that. It's
it
about
is a friendship, but it's a friendship without being homophobic, which is really nice.
Unlike Banshees of Inisherin. Sorry. I loved Banshees of Inisherin. That's my favorite bromance movie of the year.
Yeah.
Sorry, my favorite bromantic comedy.
Romantic comedy. Nick Cage and Pedro Pascal, like, they're just so funny in this movie, and there's just, like, lots of points in this movie where they're just, like, they're randomly prepared to die for each other even though they've only known each other for 24 hours, and I just think that that's really beautiful. There's representation in this film in the sense that there's a scene where Nick Cage and Pedro Pascal are talking about what their favorite movies are, and they both agree that the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is their shared favorite movie, but then when Nick Cage is like, but what's your second favorite movie? Pedro Pascal's like, you're gonna laugh at me, and Nick Cage is like, I wouldn't do that to you. And then it's like, it's Paddington 2. And it's just amazing. Like, it's a beautiful scene. And my mum got so mad when I showed her this movie, because she was like, is this why you wanted to show me? Like, you want to prove to me that Paddington is a good movie? My mum doesn't believe. I was like, no, I wanted to show because it was funny. But this movie just brought me so much joy. Mm-hmm. And it just made me very happy. And I feel like even though a lot of it does work off, like, ripping off Nick Cage's films, I think it also mostly is just ripping off, like, his public persona more than anything else. So, like, it's just a good time. And it's just very silly. And it has some genuinely good twists in it. But
Okay.
I just wanted to shout out that movie because I thought it was very funny, and it was probably the most fun I had in the cinema other than Everything Everywhere All at Once. Did you have any honourable gay film A's other than Banshees of Inisherin?
Not necessarily gay film A's, and I was joking about Banshees of Inisherin. But actually, I'm just going to list my other favourite films of the year. I'm not really going to go into them because we don't have time.
Okay.
So Decision to Leave, obviously. Park Chan-wook's new film. Go see it. It's brilliant. It's like if Luther and Alice were normal. Next up is Before Now Then. That is kind of an honorary gay movie for me because I don't think her husband was actually there. I think he was like a ghost that she was imagining. Just watch this movie and you'll see what I mean. So Before Now Then, that's directed by Camila Andini. Corsage with Vicky Crepes. Crepes? I don't know. I still don't know. Sorry. Then Banshees of Inisherin, Nanny, Return to Seoul, We Are Still Here, Resurrections, The Northman. Yeah.
Yeah, and you pretty much covered any movies I would have shouted out, so yeah. I just want to briefly mention some media that doesn't really fit anywhere that I think is worth mentioning. I have two favorite gay video essays of 2022. Anyone who knows me knows that I love a good video essay. And my two faves for the year were Overanalyzing the Barbie Movies with Queer Marxist Theory by Alexander Avilia. If you haven't seen that video essay, it's incredible. It's my best friend. I watch it just to feel happy sometimes. Also shout out to the video essay entitled I Emailed My Doctor 133 Times, The Crisis in the British Healthcare System by Abigail Thorne of Philosophy Tube fame. She basically talks about the experience of trying to get herself moved up the list of like medical transition in Britain and how like it led her to discovering like the crisis in that part of the healthcare system. And it's like a heavy watch, but I think like it's a really well put together, like I'd almost borderline call it a documentary because she does talk to people like in the system and everything like that, so it's very well put together. And outside of video essays, I also want to shout out Patrick Aboud's podcast called The Greatest Menace, which is about Australia's imprisonment of gay men and specifically how there was like a gay prison like specifically for gay men that was in
Operation in Cooma, New South Wales.
Yeah, in Operation in Cooma. And he goes and talks to people who were put in this prison. He talks to the people that used to run it. He talks to judges, to lawyers who would put people in this place. It is an incredible podcast.
Yeah.
It was one of the things that made me like be like, oh yeah, this is why I love listening to podcasts. It was just really excellent. I learned a lot about a part of Australia's history, specifically Australia's queer history, that I didn't know about. That's kind of a downer note to end on. I didn't mean for that to happen.
Nah.
But that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. But that is our 2022 wrap up. Do you have anything you want to add, Dale?
No, thank you.
No,
I'm really happy that we did all this. It's been really fun.
Yes.
Yeah, it's fun being back and having time to do this, even though 5 hours of recordings just killed me. But
you're doing so well.
I'm doing amazing, sweetie. I'm doing amazing.
You're doing
sweetie.
amazing, sweetie. You really are. All right. Anyway, thank you, guys.
Thanks
for listening.
Good to be back.
Here's to 2023. Be good. And be safe, and we love you, and thank you for listening.
Yep, bye-bye. And bye, Unlimited Futures, and this all come back now. Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah, please do that.
See ya. See ya. See ya. See ya.